How do you do, everyone? You know who I am, ETTemplar Supremist, Fit, Professional Dipshit, and someone is lying about having a stroke, or at least I think so. Now, if you're a content creator, um, there's no need to lie about medical stuff. There's not really ever a reason to lie, ever, period. Because if people like you enough, they're going to support you. And if not, well, it is what it is. But we're going to be giving our opinion on this.
All right, everyone, it's time to talk about what happened to me lately. You may have wondered why I wasn't actually on board.
Not really, none of us are really that interested in you, but
Matey, I wasn't aboard deck. I think I had a stroke.
what do you mean you think? Um, Again, I'm no doctor here, like zero dunk, but I think I can give a pretty decent analysis. What I think it is he's on the run from the law, and he can't exactly buy alcohol. Now, if you've been drinking quite a bit, and you might have strokes, or you might have seizures, or something called delirium tremens, right? Which is, if you've been drinking while and you haven't drinking, you could have like seizures and stuff, and that can actually kill you. People have died from delirium tremens. So that's what I'm thinking. If I was a guessing man, is that's what happened. I don't think it's a stroke, because even the smallest of strokes can cause like disastrous medical issues. Um, and we'll get more into that. Let's see how he's going to continue to spin this yarn.
Like a literal one, not just an ischemic attack. That can be a problem too.
Well, if it was a literal one, you wouldn't be making a video about. You'd still be in hospital with like a droopy face, or something horrendous like that. You wouldn't be coming on here a few days after suffering a stroke that almost killed you. But then again, we're talking about a guy who swears allegiance to a demon prince of hell, Stolas, and has no qualms about lying about anything and everything, because he's got no moral system. Let's just put it that way.
But I think that I had more of a stroke considering what my mom told me after my, near dead body was found, which is that I had blue lips and a blue tongue and shit like that. Now,
The very precise medical term of shit like that. Now, if you're seeing a doctor and you hear one of them say that, you probably should get a new doctor. But when describing a, drastic medical situation that's real, you wouldn't say shit like that. But that's just me.
now, there's good news and bad news.
Of course, of course.
The good news is that it doesn't appear to have affected my cognition.
Because you didn't have a, crazy enough stroke to where it did, if you did in fact have a stroke. But I digress.
It's much the same as before.
So you had this disastrous medical situation, and it's just the same before? So then, obviously, it's not a stroke. We can check mark that one off the list.
Bad news is that it definitely fucked up my eyesight.
Says the guy who's on X and Twitter constantly for hours on end, and writes horrendous fan fiction, or horrendous stories. Yeah, his lies are already unwinding and falling apart right before our eyes like a crumble cookie.
Fortunately, so my ability to perceive light and dark is greatly diminished. So white surfaces, they appear much brighter than they did before. Dark surfaces are almost indistinguishable. It makes it much harder to read text.
Okay.
That's really, really dire for somebody who really, really likes literature. I like to read, I like to edit, and so forth. And write, as you have seen lately. Another...
Yeah, the most abhorrent, shitty writing I've seen.
Good piece of news, though, for some reason, and I'm assuming this is due to mild brain damage or something.
Well, since you're making the shit up anyway, have at it.
For some reason, I find The sort of things that I found funny before more funny than I found them before. So
Probably because you've been dry a few days and not as plastered as you have been. I don't, or not. Who knows?
I'm sitting there laughing my ass off. I'm not even high or anything like that. And I'm reading literature, mainly which I have written, and it's hysterical to me. So I suppose that there's a silver lining to every dark cloud. Now, what I would tell you, because it's possible you'll have this kind of malady or some other malady within your life. I have spent years preaching the same basic idea. Turn lemons into lemonade, so to speak. You're going to face adversity in life. Doesn't matter if you start off upper middle class,
Well, some of us can face adversity and not lie about health and medical conditions.
polo shirts and golf courses and shit like that. Literally doesn't matter. You're going to have adversity and shit like that. Take your hobbies and turn them into skills, and maybe you can turn those skills into careers. That's my best advice to all of you out there. That is, be productive, look for ways to be productive, and then produce. Effectively, that's the entire message with regards to lifestyle choices. Also, be very careful who you date. Sometimes it could be a little bit more dangerous than others. That being said, I'm not too upset about the fact that I guess I had a stroke.
Because you didn't really have one. Because if you had even the smallest one, I think we'll just let him speak.
The oddity is, all of a sudden, I'm sitting there at the computer, and I was waiting for a court hearing, actually, at the time. All of a sudden, I felt like I was cut in half and ripped backwards. And I guess I sort of blacked out after that. I guess that I fell to the floor, and that's when I was found, because I was, again, all pale and my face was turning blue and shit like that. I wake up in the hospital, and I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't even know it was happening. Like, I was, only half aware at the time. And it was quite something. Yeah, let me tell you, it was definitely the most bizarre medical episode other than my overdose many years ago on JWH 18.
When he says that's like spice, it's like a chemically lab made marijuana.
And had a great time, though. I fell and probably concussed myself on the way out of the hospital, but and then had to walk home because they don't have a taxi service.
So you can already see the problem with the story, right? There's already warrants out for his arrest, and I'm pretty sure the hospital would have gotten his name, right? And they probably would have relayed that to the police. So this story is obviously quite a crafted yarn. Um, because there's no way. So the doctor, nobody like approached him when he woke up or heard the machines beeping when he took the heart monitor off. So you can kind of see where he's just spinning a yarn here. Clearly, if you have a room temperature IQ, but when you're saying stuff like shit like this, and um, he's not exactly a good storyteller, is he?
At Rutland Regional. So I was all fucked up, and I don't even really remember much of what happened after that. I just know that I managed to get home, and then I woke up in my bed, and my coordination and balance were all.
And not only that, when you get checked into the hospital, they normally take your clothes, right, and your personal effects. They put them in a bag, and he would have to get that back somehow because he still got his like homeless man leather jacket and his hobo pirate like hat. So he like would have had to have steal that bag because he would be in a nightgown, right? If he was in fact at a hospital in an emergency room. Oh, did he steal his clothes back? Did like how does that work? Like, so the more questions you ask, the more you realize that this story is an absolute fabrication.
Fucked up for a couple of days. Thankfully, that has restored itself. My vision, unfortunately, has not. I am unable to see very much out of my left eye. Everything is sort of echoey and wobbly, and again, my ability to see like light and dark, that's fucked up. So yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, you gotta go on with life, you know? Everyone gets fucked up in the end. We're all going to the grave. We're all going to the Grim Reaper, except for Chuck Norris. He probably already killed the Grim Reaper, so when we get over there, we're gonna find Chuck Norris there ready to roundhouse kick anyone he doesn't like. I don't know which one is worse, honestly. That's about all. Peace out.
What a story! If it is a fabrication or like a lie, you probably could have done better. You probably could have thought about it. You probably could have put more details. You could have said you fought an orderly at the hospital. You punched a male nurse, a nurse, to escape out the window from the second floor that you made a makeshift like sheet rope out of. Uh, so, or maybe he actually had a stroke and this actually literally happened. I'm not exactly. We have to consider the source here. A guy who literally worships a Stolas, a demon prince of hell. Do we really expect him to tell the truth on anything? No. And considering he's been lying about stuff before, he's still alive and well. If you guys don't remember, he said he was going to be dead in a few weeks. So, so maybe this stroke. Who knows? I'm not going to make too much light of it. But yeah. And the weird thing is, people actually believed his story. I think there was quartering. Melanie Mack and others were saying, "Oh, we're praying for you." Of course, he threw that back in their face because how dare you pray for his health as a decent person who at least pretends to care about you. But this entire video gives off vibes to me as like a terribly written and terribly crafted story. He may have gotten the fact of Rutland Regional Hospital. Um, and if you notice, he didn't share his medical bracelet because whenever you're checked into a hospital, they put your name right on a medical bracelet. You would figure he would at least show evidence of that. But then again, you know, it, it like in my opinion, it's not that the fact that he's lying; it's that he didn't lie like good. And you would expect someone to again create a better story, or if this was a true event, you could at least show the medical bracelet. And I'm thinking who knows, he may have actually passed out due to delirium tremens or other complications of mixture of drugs and alcohol before the court hearing, and his mother did find him. But everything after that's probably just a fabrication, a story. Um, and that's my 2 cents on it. Maybe I'm entirely wrong. Maybe he actually did suffer a stroke. I'll give him benefit of the doubt, but just the terminology of shit like this and oh, when this really happened makes me inclined to think it's an absolute yarn. So one thing you need to remember that grifters love to emotionally manipulate people. Whether it's Boogie, quartering, or our boy Styx here, there is a saying I'd like to leave you with before leaving. That is, never waste a crisis, always embellish an emergency. That's how a grifter gets paid.
Money! We gotta make some money!
The sky